Well, hey everybody, John Ritlin here, and this is a real honest rant about championships in WWE. The vast majority of them are really shitty, through no fault of the talent. I want to make it clear that I'm not going to shit on every single thing, every single championship in WWE, but I might get a little bit angry, little bit. I'm going to try not to give myself a headache. But what's frustrating me about the current WWE product, and especially the last few years, is no matter how hard the talent works, no matter how hard they work, some of the championships, some of the feuds, and quite a bit of like the championship picture across the board have had a lot of potholes in them. One so goddamn deep that if you drive into them, you're going to end up, in the Earth's core. And hopefully not run into Hillary Swank. And if you get that reference, I'm sorry, that movie was fucking horrible. But the Core, by the way, it's the Core I'm talking about. It was a terrible, terrible disaster movie. Though it was a good disaster movie in the sense that it was a complete disaster, like 2012. I believe I got a topic here. Championships in any company, no matter the years, no matter the company, no matter how many years, you're going to have bad champions. Look at WCW. Vince Russo made himself WCW champion. Vince McMahon made himself WWE and ECW, the WWECW champion. Big Show was ECW champion at one point in 2006. That was fun. Cruiserweight champion. They made Hornswoggle Cruiserweight champion. Not the worst Cruiserweight champion, though, because the worst Cruiserweight champion, of course, was Oklahoma. Ed Ferrara, that stupid, worthless, fat, disgusting fuck that made fun of JR's Bell's palsy. Fuck Ed Ferrara. I'm glad that Jim Cornette spit on him, and everybody should be allowed to take a goddamn swing at the guy for mocking JR's Bell's palsy. Like, seriously, that's a pretty piece of shit thing to do. And people say, oh, Russo booked that, Russo booked that. I actually listened to a video clip as much as I or audio clip, as much as I pick on Russo. And it's easy for a lot of fans to do. He at least apologized to JR. And he seems sincere. So I'm going to take him at his word for that. And JR seemed to forgive him. But as for Ed Ferrara, fuck that worthless piece of shit. And he was Cruiserweight champion when he was about 100 pounds over the weight limit. Oh, and then David Arquette was WCW champion. That was pretty goddamn shitty. Though David Arquette did not want to be WCW champion. He respects wrestling. Still does. David, please stop trying to wrestle and almost die. You don't need to prove anything to the fans. If any fans feel you need to prove something, do it because you love a man, but don't do it to prove people wrong, because there are some people that are just going to be bitter. And then, various others and that kind of stuff. The whole point is, Jim Duggan was U.S. champion in 1994. That was a great idea. It wasn't a great idea, and I got nothing against Jim Duggan as a person. But some championships, hey, Honky Tonk Man's the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time and had one of the worst Intercontinental title reigns ever. The whole point is a lot of factors go into making a championship good or making a championship bad. And I'm going to focus on the current titles, the titles that are currently active in WWE. And I'm going to start with, let's go 205 Live. Let's go with the history of the Cruiserweight Championship. This era of the Cruiserweight Champion. The Cruiserweight Championship. TJP was champion for a month and a half. Then Brian Kendrick, month and a half. Rich Swann, month and a half. maybe 2 months, close to it. Neville then was a great Cruiserweight champion. Then Tozawa beat him for a little bit. And then Neville won it back at SummerSlam. And then Enzo won it. And that was a low point. And this isn't going to be a hugely long Enzo rant, but the fact that that guy was given the Cruiserweight title when he had no goddamn discernible talent, but he apparently had enough talent that, freaking Ring of Honor decided to sign him and Cass. Good job there, Sinclair. You really know how to sign the winners there. And they got some great talent. They got Jeff Cobb. They got Bandito. They got a whole bunch of people. Kelly Klein, I was very impressed with the G1 Supercard. There's a good amount of talent that Ring of Honor has, and they decided to sign those two idiots. But back to the Cruiserweight title. After that, Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali had a great match at WrestleMania 34 on the pre-show, because, of course, the Cruiserweights are on the pre-show. Cedric holds it till Buddy Murphy wins it at Super Showdown, easy for me to say. Buddy loses to Tony Nese. Tony Nese, as of the recording of this video, the current Cruiserweight champion. So, it went to a low point when Enzo won it, and then rose back up to prominence. And you could argue that it actually took Buddy winning it, because Cedric was doing a great job with it and delivering some phenomenal matches, but the problem is it took a while to get the stink of that off. So you look at the last 3 years of the Cruiserweight Championship, and, almost 3 years, about 2.5. Yes, it's had some highs and some lows. It's a title that's right about here, honestly. 205 Live's, unfortunately, its own little bubble. Instead of being featured on Raw and SmackDown, which it should be. They should just drop 205 Live. I said that in Unpopular Wrestling Opinion, I believe, episode 18. And it's nothing against 205 Live. I don't want these these talents to lose their jobs, but having them in their own little bubble is just not going to fucking work. But then let's look at the UK titles. Okay, they just recently established the UK Tag Team Championships. Gibson and Drake seem to be doing a good job. UK Women's title, you had Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm. That's it so far. Two tremendous wrestlers. Not just women's wrestlers, two tremendous wrestlers. Rhea, fantastic look and everything. Dramatically changed her look from Mae Young Classic 1. Huge upside. Toni Storm, great athlete. Super sweet, by the way. If you ever get a chance to meet Toni Storm, I met her and absolutely was elated. Great talent and super nice. But yeah, that's not much history with the UK Women's Championship because it just got started a little bit ago. The UK title, which has been around for just over 2.25 years. So going on about 2.5 years pretty soon. Tyler Bate, champion till Chicago, TakeOver Chicago 1. Him and Pete Dunne had a match of the year candidate. Great match. Pete Dunne held it for there through till just the most recent TakeOver New York, which is at the Barclays Center, and lost it to Walter. So Walter is the current champion. And that title's in pretty good shape. And then let's take a look at the NXT titles. North American title, let's go with the one that was most recently established. You had the first ever champion, the one in a 6-way ladder match, which was Adam Cole, baby. And then he lost it to Ricochet at, TakeOver Brooklyn 4. Everybody, of course, get on the floor and do the dinosaur. Thanks, Derb, if you haven't been watching this for getting that stuck in my head. So, then you go with Ricochet losing it to Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano only holds it for a little bit. Velveteen Dream beats him. Velveteen Dream is the current champion. And that's the fourth champion in less than a year. Now, that's difficult to maintain the credibility of a championship if you toss it around that many times. Cole held it for 4 months. Ricochet held it for 5 months. After that, it's been kind of quick. You can't always do that, and that's where I'm going to touch on some of this stuff about championships. You can't touch, greatness. You can't make a title great if you just say, hey, we got this and we're going to put it over here. Oh, hey, we got this and we're going to put it on a pedestal and we're going to rip that pedestal down because we're just going to, take the title and just, just slop it out, stretch it too thin, make it too meaningless. And I'm not saying that any of those talents that I mentioned about the North American title are meaningless. 100% no. In fact, actually, I would argue that probably that all 4 of those guys have deserved the championship. All 4 of those guys deserve to be NXT champion. I mean, of course, Gargano is the current NXT champion. But the North American title's got potential, and a mid-card title is something that NXT had needed for a bit. And it looks classic. It looks old school. I love it. It looks like one of the old Crockett, it looks like one of the Florida titles. Or, was it the Western Heritage States Championship? I forget what it was. It just reminds me a bit, of an old school U.S. title. So the whole point is that title is in pretty good shape. Hopefully Velveteen holds it until at least TakeOver around SummerSlam. Give everybody 4 to 5 months with the title and you can make it mean something. But then let's take a look at let's take a look at the tag titles. And I'm not going to go through every single person that has won the title, but say just from the time that AOP won him. AOP won him a couple years ago. Held him until beat DIY a little too soon for the titles. Held him until TakeOver Brooklyn 3, where they lost him to Sandy. Then Sandy lost him in the Undisputed Era. And Undisputed Era retained him at TakeOver New Orleans. And then lost him to Mustache Mountain. Mustache Mountain lost him back on TV a little bit later. And then you had the Undisputed Era lose to the War Raiders. And then the War Raiders beat Aleister Black and Ricochet and are the current champions. The tag titles are in a decent place, though I will argue that the War Raiders are great athletes, and their match with Ricochet and Aleister was really, really good. I gotta admit, though, their NXT run so far has not impressed me that much. That match with Aleister and Ricochet has probably impressed me the most. But those titles, they mean something because tag team wrestling, even though the tag team depth isn't fantastic in NXT, it means something. And I'm going to get to the main roster, don't worry. That's where this thing's really going to get angry. The women's title. Let's just go with Asuka's reign. Asuka's reign, she holds it from beating Bayley at, TakeOver Dallas. That took me a second to figure that out. held it from there. Beat Nia, take over the end. Beat Bailey at take over Brooklyn 2, Electric Boogaloo. Beat Mickey at take over Toronto. Beat, I believe, Billy, Peyton, and Ruby in a or Nikki. Might have been Billy. I know that it was a 4-way, and I mean, sorry, but the San Antonio card kind of, wasn't one of my favorites. I know Asuka retained there. Asuka retained against Ember at TakeOver Orlando in a pretty good match. She had a great match with Nikki Cross on NXT TV, Last Woman Standing, which was the first ever Last Woman Standing match, not the, not what Charlotte and Becky did at Evolution. Great and fantastic as that match was. I just didn't like that they ignored Nikki and Asuka having one. So, then she doesn't lose it to Ember. And then the title gets held up because Asuka suffered, I believe, a crack in her collarbone. And they decide to have women, they decided to have 4 women face off. And it was Kairi Sane, Ember, Peyton, was it Nikki? I think it was. I know that Peyton was in there, and I was actually hoping that Peyton would win. And they gave the women very little time to tell a story. From the time Asuka beat Ember, and even during Asuka's reign, and I love Asuka. I'm glad that Asuka got to stay undefeated as long as she did, or, have that massive winning streak. It started to become the Asuka problem. During Asuka's reign is when the title, while valuable, while meaning something, started to mean less, because when you devalued or beat everybody to fucking powder to get Asuka over, there's a rebuilding period. And unfortunately, in poor Ember, she was given the title. Hey, Asuka's like, hey, you couldn't beat me, but here's my title. I'm going to go, see ya. And then Ember had probably one of the limpest title reigns. Nothing against Ember. Ember is a tremendous athlete, and I'm so glad to see she's back in the ring. Rushed her rehab to get back in time for WrestleMania 35. And that she was able to be in that, Women's Battle Royal. And hopefully Ember can either have a good showing on Raw, get moved to SmackDown, something, whatever. I honest to God hope that some great things can happen with Ember, because she is a tremendous athlete. And quite frankly, one of the Durbinator's favorite wrestlers. And, if you've seen any of our Raw and SmackDown reviews, especially our Raw reviews, you know that to be true. But poor Ember got dealt a bad hand. She just didn't have that compelling a match as world champion while she tried. Shayna finally beat her. It took a bit for Shayna to finally win me over. Now, Shayna's promos still haven't quite won me over. Her ring work's pretty good. Her as champion, it was fine. Kairi Sane beat her, held it for a couple months, and then Shayna won it. Now it's starting to become a problem, though. The women's division in NXT, and this is something I'll touch on in another rant, has not been really up to snuff, and nothing against the talent. Nothing against the talent. But again, when you had Asuka put the title on such a pedestal, and Asuka was put on such a pedestal when everybody's down here, and you build and build and build Asuka up. And I love Asuka. I wish that she was being used better on the main roster right now. It takes a while. Once you take that away, it takes a while for people who've been beaten down here to get back up. And just now, the women are still only getting, at times, sometimes they're getting tag team matches the last 6 to 7 minutes. Sometimes the women are getting, some TV matches that barely last at all. Candice and Aaliyah, I think, had they had a match that was taped before TakeOver, Brooklyn, or TakeOver New York, and they were they had like maybe a 3-4 minute match, if I recall seeing it correctly. It was not very long. Now, however you feel about Aaliyah, I'm 50-50 on her. I've never necessarily been the biggest fan, though I credit her for sticking around and trying to improve and doing better. That's not the way that you're going to be able to use women all that well. If you have that much time that you're taping stuff before, I know they got a bunch of recaps and stuff, give the women at least 6 minutes. They'd hype that stuff up in vignettes. My whole point is how can you make a title mean something if you have a champion here and you have all these women down here that aren't being used all that well? So that's my thoughts on the NXT women's, title picture, and I'll get to that later. The NXT title picture. Taking a look from Rude, when Bobby Roode was champion. Bobby Roode had a great run as champion. It was also one of the most boring runs. And that's not to say that Roode is boring. Roode is not boring. Roode is a very great workman champion, very talented in the ring, and worked his ass off to make it matter. And then, Drew McIntyre beat him. Drew McIntyre beat him and held it for a few months. Andrade Cien almost beat him. Well, when he was Andrade Cien Almas, now he's Andrade, he beat him. And that was great. And then lost to, had a great match with Gargano at TakeOver Philly. One of my favorite TakeOver matches of all time. And just absolutely tremendous fucking match. And then lost to Aleister Black. And Aleister Black held it for a bit, suffered a groin injury. Then you had Gargano and Ciampa fight over the title for a bit. Ciampa won the championship, if you will. And then had to relinquish it due to a neck injury. And then Cole and Gargano fought. So now Gargano is the current champion. The NXT title actually means quite a bit. The problem is, how are they going to keep this momentum going? But the NXT titles, relatively speaking, are in pretty good shape. Now let's get to the main roster, and let me tell you this. There are a few championships that actually mean something. The WWE title in 2017 meant absolutely jack and shit. You had AJ Styles enter the year as champion, lost it to Cena at the Royal Rumble, who held it for 2 weeks. Bray Wyatt won it for what, 6-7 weeks? Lost it to Orton. Orton held for a month and a half. And then they gave it to Jinder. And I'm going to touch on this in another video because this is something that I really want to get angry about. But Jinder, if Jinder isn't the worst WWE champion of all time, not named Vince McMahon, I would like you to tell me who it is. And I'm talking WWE. I'm not talking world champion. The worst world champion is Khali or somebody like that. But if Jinder Mahal is not on everybody's list, or at least most people's list of worst WWE champions, and maybe not number one, but not in the top 5, I would like you to explain why. I'm not saying you guys can't be fans of Jinder. That's okay. You don't want me to, you don't want to have Jinder slander on your timeline. Well, sorry. I'm not saying that the guy didn't try, but he wasn't very good. He just simply wasn't. He was fucking rotten. He just fucking was. But then AJ had to win it from him. And it took a while for AJ's title reign to kind of mean something. And then it became a problem. Because you had 371 days and it was about 3 feuds. It was Nakamura, Samoa Joe. I think that was it. It was 2 feuds. Well, he had 1 feud with Rusev for a little bit. The whole point is he had 3 feuds. There's nothing wrong with doing 3 feuds if you make them compelling. If you make them terrible TV, then it's not really that good. Now the WWE Championship, it was in Daniel Bryan's hands. Now it's in Kofi Kingston's hands. But it took about halfway through AJ's reign to really start to mean something because it took a while to get the stink of Jinder off of that. And I'm sorry, the guy may have tried. He just wasn't championship material. He just wasn't. But then let's take a look at the Universal title. And the Universal title is fucking meaningless. Even on Seth Rollins right now, it just is fucking meaningless. And here's why. Look at the timeline. Finn Balor was champion for a little bit, lost it. Then, Kevin Owens won it in a 4-way. Held it for about 6 months. Almost 7 months. About 6. Lost it to Goldberg. Goldberg held it for a little bit, lost it to Brock. Brock held it till SummerSlam 2018, lost it to Roman, and then Roman had to relinquish it due to leukemia returning. Thankfully, he is okay. He has recovered. However you feel about the wrestler, remember, there is still a human being there. But then, so Brock won it back, and then Seth Rollins beat him at Mania. That title means so little. The Universal title is what the WCW International Heavyweight Championship was. And if you know anything about history, that's not a good thing, because it doesn't even matter who holds the championship. It means absolutely nothing if the title is not valued. Brock not being on TV for so goddamn long, it will take the next person after Seth Rollins to make that title matter. And it's not that Seth Rollins won't try. Seth Rollins could hold that till Mania. He could hold till Mania 37. I mean, he won't. He'll probably lose at SummerSlam. But the whole point is he could hold it for a year. It's going to take another person to really get the stink off. Now, Rollins is going to work his damn hardest to make that title matter, but that title's fucking meaningless. And then let's take a look at the women's titles. The Raw women's title, after, you had Alexa as champion and you had Nia win it. That didn't fucking work because nobody bought Nia as a babyface. Mainly because she couldn't stop fucking injuring people. Hopefully Nia does recover from her double ACL tear. That is no goddamn joke. Hopefully she comes back in fighting shape, in ring shape, and stops injuring people. But in all seriousness, hopefully she does recover. Yes, I had to throw in a few jokes there, but hopefully she does recover. But she was champion, and she lost it, when her and Ronda had a match, and then Alexa cashed in, and Alexa won the title, and then Ronda won the title at SummerSlam. And Ronda, however you feel about her outside the ring, kind of a piece of shit for some of the stuff. She's done some good stuff, but is still kind of a questionable cunt in some, instances. She did make that title matter, though. Evolution match with Nikki Bella notwithstanding, because that match was terrible. Sorry, it was just terrible. It was better than I thought it was going to be, but I also thought it was going to be the dog's ass. She did everything she could to make that title matter, including offering to cut off her hair and wash Sasha's feet with it. No, I will not fucking let that go, because it was a stupid goddamn line. And hopefully Ronda recovers from her broken hand, because it's going to be difficult for her to use one hand to cut off her hair and wash Sasha's feet with it. I should turn that into a t-shirt. Nah, probably get in trouble for that. But in fact, I might actually talk to Derb about some merch options. Let me know in the comments if you guys would be willing to buy shirts. Why not? We're just a fun little channel and everything. But the Raw Women's title actually means something. Through no fault of how Ronda is outside the ring, inside the ring, she's done pretty well. Has she had her issues? Yeah, she's still new to this. She may not be back for a bit, especially after that broken hand. Who knows? But the Raw Women's title actually meant something. SmackDown Women's title, I'm just going to say it. It meant jack shit. It meant jack shit heading into Mania. You did have Carmella as champion. Horrible. Didn't work no matter how hard she tried. Charlotte then won it at SummerSlam. That didn't work. Becky then won it, which was great. And held it for a few months. Asuka winning at TLC was a surprise. She beat Becky clean, making her tap out at the Royal Rumble. And then that's it. They just fucking forgot about it. Absolutely fucking forgot about it. Asuka had a throwaway feud with Mandy Rose, which, no fault of Mandy, but it was a throwaway feud, and then lost the title to Charlotte, very soon heading into Mania. There were a few too many people wishing death and bad things on Charlotte just because she beat Asuka, and I don't think Charlotte wanted to fucking do that. I mean, maybe I'm just reading a little too much into it, but I don't know if she exactly wanted that. It was a bad move by WWE, even though it led to what happened at Mania, Becky 2 belts, hashtag Becky 2 belts. So now it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the titles. Becky can't hold on to those 2 titles for that long, though. I don't know what's going to happen, but right now, the Raw Women's title on Becky would be great. SmackDown, she doesn't really need to hold it that long. Maybe past Money in the Bank, depending on what feud they go with. But the SmackDown Women's title is going to need Becky to elevate it. It's going to need the next champion to elevate it. Maybe Lacey Evans, maybe Nikki Cross, depends on who wins it. Probably Lacey Evans, seems like they're going with that. It's going to take Lacey Evans and whoever else wins it to make that title matter more, because that title was thrown in the goddamn shitter. It was forgotten about. That is not how you treat a women's championship. Even if you have only a certain amount of depth on both shows, Raw and SmackDown, you need to make your titles matter more. Otherwise, why the fuck do you have 2 titles? The problem is then, if you have one champion, then you're going to have them go between both brands. And that, it reaches, or that increases the risk of further injury. And you don't fucking want that. But now, let's go. Let's go to the tag titles. SmackDown tag titles sort of mean something. Sort of. The Usos and New Day did pretty well with that. And then, then the Bludgeon Brothers won it. Then New Day won it. And then, was it the Bar? Was it the Bar? Who the fuck won those? Yeah, the Bar. That's right, the Bar won them. Sorry, totally forgot about that. Usos did end up heading in with them after being Shane McMahon and Miz. Of course, Shane McMahon, the best wrestler in the world, and the Miz beat him. They beat them, and then the Usos won the titles from Shane McMahon and the Miz after they beat the Bar. Oh, and then the Usos retained the titles and then lost the titles just recently on the most recent SmackDown to the Hardy Boys. Well, the Hardy Brothers. Don't really think you can call them boys anymore. I mean, they're older than I am. Not that they weren't older than I am, like always, but still. The SmackDown tag titles are kind of eh. And then you got the Raw tag titles. The Raw tag titles mean jack and fucking god motherfucking damn fucking shit. Fucking they mean as much as this bottle. They mean nothing. I don't know what the bottle means. The whole point is the Raw tag titles mean absolutely nothing. As soon as, the Bar had him, but let's just even go back to last year. As soon as Braun and that kid Nicholas, and nothing against the kid, he was just there, he probably terrified. I think he was the son of one of the referees. As soon as they won the tag titles, you might as well just take them and throw them in the fucking trash. It was rotten. From there, you had, other teams had piddled around, that kind of stuff. It was stupid. AOP were champions at one point, and then it was the AOPP. It was stupid. Rude and Gable, and then the Revival. And the Revival, had one of the limpest tag title reigns ever. And I mean, I love the Revival, but it was limp. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. I fucking love the Revival. Whether they're going to go somewhere else from WWE, whether they get released or not, who knows? But I hope that wherever they go, if it's in WWE, they get good opportunities. If they go anywhere else, they get good opportunities. They are a dynamite tag team. They deserve better. And now you got Hawkins and Ryder as the current champion. It's clearly the SmackDown tag titles, even though they ain't great, they're here. And you can't even see where the Raw tag titles are. I like Hawkins and Ryder. I mean, I'm happy that they turned a Hawkins win streak or losing streak into something he finally won. But this is a perfect illustration of how titles don't mean anything. Now let's go to the secondary titles like the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title. Intercontinental title is meaningless. And I hate saying that. Rollins and Ziggler worked damn hard to try and make that mean something. Miz tried hard to make that mean something, whether he was on Raw or SmackDown. He really tried hard to make that mean something. The Intercontinental title has been treated like a goddamn prop for too long. I mean, it was originally or one time twice held by Santino, which tells you right there that it didn't mean anything. It was held by other people after that. It was held by Big Show for a month. Good job there. But most recently, Miz, Rollins, Elias should have won it in 2018. He didn't. And then Ziggler and Rollins traded back and forth a little bit, or had a nice feud for it. That was good. But then it just fell off the fucking map. You had Bobby Lashley. Well, you had Ambrose beat Rollins, and he barely held it. Lashley beat Ambrose. Balor beat Lashley. And Lashley beat Balor, and Balor's the champion again. That is 6 title changes in... If you just go to SummerSlam, where Rollins beat Ziggler, it's like 6 title changes. 5, 6 title changes in less than 8 months. That's not fucking good. Even from just Ambrose winning at TLC. Ambrose winning at TLC. Lashley beats Ambrose. Okay, so you got 2 title changes. Balor beats Lashley. 3. Lashley beats Balor. And then Balor beats Lashley. 5 title changes in 4 months. That's fucking stupid. That makes a title absolutely meaningless. It's not Vince Russo levels of WCW title booking in 2000, but it's pretty goddamn bad. Intercontinental title means absolutely shit. And let's go look at the U.S. title just to finish up this whole damn thing. I had to remind myself who the U.S. champion fucking was, because I forgot it was Samoa Joe. And that's nothing against Samoa Joe. I want Joe to have a really long reign with the title, at least until SummerSlam. I mean, I know that isn't super long. We would only give it to him for about 5 months, roughly. But it would mean something. The U.S. title has meant shit. It's meant shit. It has. Look at like Jinder, when Jinder won it at WrestleMania last year. That was fucking stupid. Because let's see, it was Bobby Roode that had it, then Orton beat him at Fastlane, and then Jinder beat, everybody in a 4-way, and then lost it to Jeff Hardy a little bit later. Jeff Hardy held it for a few months, and because he was so fucking focused, Nakamura beat him easily, after a low blow. Nakamura proceeded to hold it for 5 months and do absolutely nothing with it, and they didn't have him do anything with it. Rusev wins it, holds it for a month, drops it back to Nakamura, then Nakamura loses it to Truth. And nothing against R-Truth, but he shouldn't have been champion at that point. He probably was, because Nia blasted him and injured him at the Rumble, because Nia, again, is a careless twat. Who, again, hopefully she recovers from injury, but that doesn't take away from the fact she's careless. And there, the men's Rumble, and I don't mind women entering the men's Rumble, but Nia sure as fuck didn't deserve it. But that's controversial, I suppose. The U.S. title doesn't mean anything, though. A Joe can make it matter. But right now, for the last couple of years, the U.S. title has been horrible. Going back to Owens and Jericho and all that, and AJ and Owens trading it back and forth, and Baron Corbin even being U.S. champion. I had to be reminded of that in another video. The whole point is championships in WWE need to fucking matter more. And the fact that only a couple do, and most of them are in NXT, that's not good. The women's titles and the WWE title matter the most. SmackDown tag titles just below it, everything else is a fucking wash. Bit of a long rant. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I will see you soon.